Hello everyone, how are you doing? I'm feeling a little heartbroken, to be honest. This video is the story of Meruem and Komugi. The first time I watched it, I was hit hard, but I think the blow was lessened because of everything else happening during the Chimera Ant arc. I got the idea for this video from a post I saw on TikTok. An artist depicts Komugi and Meruem in their last moments. In the comments, people are debating if their relationship was platonic or romantic. Honestly, I assumed it was romantic because I'm a hopeless romantic and I adore a love story. So I thought, let me watch all the Meruem and Komugi scenes again with a more critical lens.
What is that?
Let's go through it together and decide for ourselves. Platonic or romantic? All cards on the table, I want it to be romantic, but I will try to be objective. I'm going to begin with the king in his stolen palace, playing games to pass the time until a mass execution of humans, what they call the sorting. Which humans can become soldiers and which are only livestock. The king seems to quite like games, or he likes the idea of games because so far, he has not been truly challenged. He picks them up quickly, defeats the champions like it's nothing, and moves on to the next one.
And once you know their rhythm, disrupting it is easy.
Until he discovers the game of Gungi and the champion of the last 3 years, Komugi. She is a blind girl with bushy eyebrows and a snotty nose. Her nose is always running and snot-filled. Doesn't anyone have a handkerchief for Komugi? The king doesn't really pay attention to her, the same way he doesn't really pay attention to anyone. And then when he does, he finds her quite gross. And he thinks she's dumb. She describes herself as ignorant and stupid, but she is also kind, compassionate, and extraordinarily gifted at this game. I could not find her exact age. In the anime, they refer to her as girl or young girl, so I think she must be in her mid to late teens. The king is like a week old. We see right away that she is blind, and she only opens her eyes when she's playing Gungi, her greatest passion in the world. This game is the entirety of her life, her purpose, her calling, her greatest joy. It's like her heavenly restriction sacrifices common sense and clear nasal cavities in exchange for Gungi supremacy. The king notices this and is surprised that he wasn't able to beat her after just a few games. And this engages him. He wants to truly beat her.
Impossible. There were only 144 moves start to finish. This could only have happened if she predicted my game from the start. Again.
Okay.
This is probably his first true challenge. Now, let's take a moment to think about what challenges do for us as individuals. They make us stop and reassess. What are my capabilities and why did I fail? Has the king ever really asked himself why in his life so far? Has anything been difficult? Has he failed at anything that he has tried? No. They continue playing Gungi. In fact, the king spends most of his time playing this game with her. The king believes he's come up with a new move and he's finally going to beat the champion. But he is mistaken, and not only that, the brand new move he invented is something she invented a decade ago. She is incredibly happy to know that their minds work in the same way when it comes to Gungi. She tells this extremely personal and emotional story of how she came up with the move and found a way to kill it. And he listens intently. For Komugi, I think this is like finding out the guy you're talking to likes the same random band or obscure anime. For the king, I think he is feeling multiple things for the very first time. Genuine interest in another person, curiosity, intrigue, and admiration. Also, that mix of anger, sadness, and frustration that accompanies being the second person to come up with an idea. And also, that pleasant feeling of discovering something in common with another individual. They had the same idea. And I think his ego rejects this feeling of kinship with her, as well as his feelings of admiration or being impressed by her. She's just some weak, pathetic human, so why should he admire her? After she shares such a personal story, he says he's lost interest and he leaves. He tells her to enjoy her break because after this one, there won't be any more. Later on, we see him ruminating on his throne, and he was anything but bored. In fact, he was enjoying himself, enjoying playing with her, enjoying her. I think him listening to her story shows that he's not just interested in her skills as a Gungi player, but in who she is as a person. Even Poof remarks that the king has never spent that much time listening to anyone else. And that is significant. Is the interest he has in her romantic? Maybe not yet. But he doesn't like his feelings for her. They make him uncomfortable, which makes me feel like it's the beginnings of a crush. Like a little boy insisting the girl he likes is gross, even though he just wants to be close to her. The next time we see them play, he offers her a bet. If she wins, he will give her anything she wants. In this moment, she could literally save her people, but she doesn't even know they're in danger. Anyway, if she loses, he'll remove her arm. His internal monologue says he does this to throw off her game by introducing fear and greed into her mind. So, he's cheating, basically. I think he resents, not a deep resentment, but he resents not just her continued victories, but his own interest in her. He wants her to prove to him that she's just like all the other humans, and then he'll know that she's not special, so he can stop thinking about her. And this reminds me of having a crush. But in the interest of fairness, I will say that even when you have people that you're interested in as friends, you think about them a lot, and maybe you try to test them in some way to see who they truly are, so you know if they're worthy of your time. So yeah, fairness. His venture fails as Komugi is unfazed, stating that every time she plays, she puts her whole life on the line because her only value is her ability to win Gungi. So if she loses, take her life, not her arm. He listens to her, asks questions, and makes an effort to understand her and her resolve. And he feels ashamed for attempting to mess with her emotions in this way. Her dedication is absolute, and if he wants to beat her, she has to be the same. He apologizes.
No more betting. That was my mistake.
You could argue that this is not an apology, but I think this is as close to an apology as he is capable of getting. And he rips off his arm to make amends, or to punish himself. Either way, I'd say this shows great respect and a recognition of her dedication and expertise. Sounds kind of like a grand gesture, don't you think? But maybe this is just the kind of things that friends do for each other. Later on, when his arm has been repaired, she grows tired and he calls an end to their games, saying they'll take a break for half a day so she can rest. Half a day is a long time, and I think this is the beginning of him feeling the need to take care of her. He has never given anyone else this much leeway, half a day to rest. And let's remember that not too long ago he told her there would be no more breaks. Now suddenly he cares about her well-being. But of course, we all feel protective over our friends. Who among us would not let our exhausted friend get some rest? None of us, right? So yes, this could also just be friendship. The next time we see them playing together, there is a massive development. The king is asking her for advice.
Should I have tried to escape to the right, perhaps?
You should have moved your knight.
I'd say that there is a certain amount of vulnerability that comes with asking for help and admitting that someone else knows more than you do. And yes, there is vulnerability in friendship too. Her advice changes the way he naturally thinks. His instinct is to attack, and she teaches him how to be more passive and to observe. This eventually changes the way that he operates in the world. She tells him he cannot always be aggressive. She teaches him patience and the value of a passive approach. And she is inspired by him too. She has never played someone so brilliant. I've been focusing on the king a lot, but Komugi is also clearly growing attached to the king. I would say that she is the happiest she has ever been in his presence. She opens up to him, telling him personal stories, giving him advice, and just enjoying his company. And when she asks for a break to go back to her room to make some notes about their amazing game, he gives it to her. He merely asks her, why?
Her name. Hey. Your name. What should I call you by?
My name is Komugi, dear leader.
Komugi, huh?
He wants to know her name. And she wants to know his as well. More vulnerability, more interest. She is officially someone valuable to him. And her question to him, what is your name, initiates a whole existential crisis. He has never been anything but the king. He goes to talk to his guards, and this whole exchange is notable. Later, when the king fights Netero, the old man remarks that the king straddles the line between human and ant, not leaning in either direction. For me, this is where he begins to step away from the ant side to the middle, towards the human side. Komugi has shown him that physical strength is not the only thing that makes life valuable. Komugi is valuable to him. He reflects on his earlier killing of a child. He did so without a moment's consideration. What if that child would grow? That is interesting. But then that chimera ant part of him kicks in and he's like, I am saying is that I can kill anyone I decide value. So almost there but not quite. Now he's all hopped up on his own power and he decides to kill Komugi, thereby exerting his particular strength over hers. Perhaps a reaction to his earlier vulnerability, asking her for help. For him, it's like, how can someone as powerful as me ask someone like her for advice? His kind of strength is more impactful than her kind. And considering that, why should he like her? And then he opens her bedroom door and finds she's being attacked by an eagle. Very random. What is this eagle's deal? He kills the eagle and is by her side a moment later and he's worried. She says she didn't want to disturb anyone and he's like, you're the guest of the king. You ask for anything you want. So he claims her, you could say. And she bursts into tears because his concern and his attachment of her to him is just so kind and meaningful. And I think she likes him, you guys. And he is reeling. Why do I feel this way? I wanted to kill her. Why do I care that she's hurt? What do I want to do with her?
And me? What do I want to do with her?
I'm just joking. I'm just joking, you guys. I'm just joking. In the next episode, he orders Pito to protect Komugi because she knew what was happening and did nothing because she's just some human and doesn't matter. Which goes against his life philosophy, the one that he had before Komugi. Humans are nothing. They are livestock. They are a means to an end. So if this isn't true, what else isn't true? What am I doing? Why am I here? The king is having somewhat of an existential crisis. We see Komugi thinking about the king too, how he didn't tell her his name and how excited she is to play with him again. And she opens her eyes. She's thinking about him and she opens her eyes. The only other time she does this is when she's playing Gungi, her whole reason for living. The thing she loves so much that she would be happy to die if she lost a game. For me, this is the defining piece of evidence that Komugi loves the king. So the question is it romantic love? Perhaps I cannot say for sure either way at this point, but she is brought to tears that he didn't share his name with her, which is a pretty big reaction. The hunters begin their attack on the palace and Komugi is severely injured. The depth of the emotion he feels at the sight of her injuries is so intense and dark that Netero, Killua's grandfather, and Peter are all frozen in time. He himself is frozen by his own emotion over it. Panic? Fear? What exactly causes this? His face is nothing but a black mask. The animation style changes and there is no color anywhere. Can we conclude that the loss of Komugi is tantamount to the loss of color for the king? I think his entire worldview shifts and reorganizes in this moment. The way he holds her is described as gentle and kind, an act of love for another's life. So, confirmation that he loves her. But is it romantic? He orders Peter to heal her. I'm counting on you, he says. An expression of vulnerability which she recognizes, as shown by her tears. He wipes the blood from Komugi's mouth, takes her hand and lays it by her side. His actions are so tender that his enemies stand by and wait. When the king says to Pito, I'm counting on you. For me, this is the equivalent of saying, please. But he's not capable of that kind of vulnerability with Pito.
You will heal Komugi. I'm counting on you.
When he faces Netero, he is more than willing, perhaps even eager, to go somewhere else to engage in their fight. He says that he's sure that Netero would want to avoid human casualty. But I wonder if there is a human life that he doesn't want to be in danger. Instead of leaping into battle with Netero, he wants to talk. He says things that he would never have said just a few days ago, that he would have never said before Komugi got so badly wounded. He sees the value in human life, not inherent value, but that some humans have something to offer. In the world he creates, he will make sure that those humans are actually valued and that none will suffer as they do now. They'll only eat the valueless humans, which is a vast improvement on his previous stance. But the thing he says that is truly amazing is that the true purpose of power is to protect the weak. 2 days ago, the purpose of strength was to rule, to dominate, to inflict his own will. But then, the woman he loved was injured, and he didn't protect her. Correlation?
You see, I have learned what true power is meant to be used for. to protect the weak, who deserve to live.
This is why I say that in the moment that Komugi was so injured and his face was this black mask, that his whole view of the world reorganized. And this is where Netero points out that the king hovers between human and ant. I wanted to really get into this fight, but the script is already too long. I might make a separate video that's just this fight because it's very good. The king utilizes lessons he learned through playing with Komugi to defeat Netero, and the old man becomes the second human he admires. And he learns his name is Meruem. I just imagine that he's thinking in his mind, oh, these humans are not as bad as I thought. But then Netero, in his final moments, detonates a super nuclear bomb and destroys his body. And then in a very weird scene, Poof and Loopy revive him by giving him their essence. And it brings them like ecstasy? It's a weird one. Anyway, after this, Meruem is even stronger than he was before because he has absorbed some of Loopy's abilities and some of Poof's abilities and made them even better than they were before. Also, he has lost his memory, which does make sense considering he just got hit with like an atomic bomb. But I was so annoyed by the storyline and how long it takes him, number one, to get back to the palace, number two, to remember Komugi. I hated this episode. Ugh. Komugi is captured by the hunters and Killua carries her on his back, thinking about Meruem and how she wants to see him again. I don't know if there is significance to her use of the word see, like maybe he is more visible to her than anyone else is, in a metaphorical sense. Just thought I'd mention it. Meruem knows something is missing, something important. He doesn't even feel that way about Pito. He doesn't feel her absence. There is something in his heart that he has forgotten that is so important its absence eats away at him. He is looking for her even though he's not aware of it. Reminds me of Sakuta and Mei in Bunny Girl Senpai. She disappeared from reality and he just had this feeling that something was fundamentally missing. And he loved her, so. When Meruem hears her name again, the scene he pictures is literally them in a golden field with flowers and a peaceful breeze and petals in the wind, beauty and peace, sunlight on his face. That is what Komugi is to him, and once he remembers her, nothing else matters. Not this wolf, not the people, not Poof, not his hunger, not punishment, not his mission, nothing. And his perspective shifts of the world, of what is significant, of his own purpose. He sees what makes life worth living, and it's not seizing control of the world. He finds Palm and asks her for help. He is dying, and all he wants is to talk to Komugi. He does not threaten Palm or even touch her. In fact, he is willing to get on his knees before her and beg. He is no longer the king. He is Meruem, and he wants his Komugi. He has crossed over onto the human side of himself. What could be more human than honestly asking for help and just wanting to be with the person who matters to you the most? To love and be loved. And of course, when he finds her, she's got like snot bubbles, but I bet he doesn't even see that. He's just like, oh, my queen. He wakes her up to play with him with such enthusiasm. This is what he's been looking for.
Wake up, Komugi. Let's play.
As they're getting ready to play, she casually mentions she's been dreaming of playing with him and the reality is so much better. And he's just like, yes, like that's not the most romantic thing in the world.
Well then, it feels like you and I haven't played in forever. Playing in real life's completely different from playing in dreams.
True.
He doesn't talk with anyone like he talks with her. He enjoys knowing her, knowing that if he asks her what she wants in this whole world, her answer would be another match. He tells her his name, and she uses it, but only with Lord attached, despite his protest. Meruem gives her pure happiness, and she cries. I think he feels unworthy of such intense emotion and reveals that he is dying, and actively putting her at risk of dying too. She makes a play and tells him that she would like nothing more than to go with him. I see, he says. I believe I was born for this moment, she says. Their eyes are doing that wide quivering thing, and we know what that means. That means romantic love. So does that blush on Komugi's nose. This is why I was born, he says, for this moment.
I believe that I was born so I could be here today.
This is why I was born. For this moment.
And then we have a special ending sequence of moments between them, and this romantic music plays. And then one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen in anime.
Komugi, are you there?
Of course I am.
We watch Meruem's photons dim, floating around the dark warehouse. Komugi, are you there? Yes, of course. They keep playing. She keeps winning. Meruem's voice grows faint. He's never been able to beat her. She thinks he can try again. Komugi, are you there? Why does he keep asking her that? Is he truly afraid that she's gone, or is his need for her so great that he just has to make sure? She assures him that she's not going anywhere. He is tired, needs to sleep. Komugi, will you hold my hand? Will you stay with me? We'll always be together, she says. And then we see her touching him for the first time, touching his face. Now she knows he's not human. She takes his hand, and that's the end.
Good night, Meruem.
Gosh, guys, the way when she takes his hand and he like turns it over and holds her hand like tight and it like shakes. And I just feel like there's fear there, like he's dying and he's like afraid and getting comfort from her. And oh my gosh, I made myself sad again. So yeah, I think I'm gonna say it's romantic love.